Good morning, Liz.
Morning.
Here we are outside the High Court.
I'm here to sit in on a commission hearing for a landmark case, which is a case to see if the Prime Minister has overstepped her powers by deciding to leave the European Union on her own when she wrote the letter to the European Union.
What's the difference between notify and decide?
The difference between notifying and deciding is quite substantial. So you can make several analogies. So you could think about planning permission. When you get planning permission, the council notify it by putting a sign at the end of your driveway or whatever. But that decision is being notified after the decision has been made. They can't really decide and notify at the same time. So you have to decide first and then you notify. So again, if I gave you permission to notify my forthcoming engagement, if I hadn't actually been asked if someone wanted to marry me, then it wouldn't be a valid decision, would it? They wouldn't be. You're not actually notifying anything that's been decided, and that's exactly where we are on Brexit. Well, now Parliament's being asked if it wants to leave the EU, and as you can see, it doesn't. There's been a little bit of press coverage for this particular case. The Independent did a piece yesterday, and the Guardian's done a couple of pieces, and it was mentioned on Radio 4 this morning. If they get permission today, I would imagine there'll be an enormous earthquake. There will be an outbreak of coverage. But it's a shame that it hasn't been covered as the events have gone on, because this has been going through the courts now for over a year, and the press have been blocking it. They haven't been telling the public about it, it's just wrong, really. I think the media owners would like a hard Brexit, which isn't possible because of Northern Ireland. This case is built on the decision and saying that it's unconstitutional. We didn't know where the decision was when we started my case. Our case is really asking, where is the decision? And the government never gave us any answers. They said they didn't need a decision. So now that we identified the decision, this case is challenging that decision, and it's also saying that it's predicated, it's built on the referendum, which itself has been discredited by the findings of the Electoral Commission with all the fraud and so forth. So our case essentially was saying there is no decision to leave, we can't identify one, so therefore the notification is invalid. This one says the decision is unconstitutional, illegitimate, however you want to put it. The decision to leave is illegitimate because the Prime Minister decided, one person made the decision, which Parliament has to make that decision, because rights are lost when the decision to leave is made.
Is there a single politician who has made a single comment about the validity of your case?
Good question.
As a journalist, I quite like to quote them.
Yeah, I mean, I've had communication privately with Michael Heseltine, who's been supportive. I think there's been this just fear of backlash of the will of the people, and generally people want to believe that they made the decision in the referendum, I suppose, and they're fearful of it disappointing people. I don't know, I don't really understand it, as well as really Parliament should have been. I think because of Jeremy Corbyn's leadership being pro-Brexit, they don't want to really challenge Brexit. But an active opposition would have been on this, as the bill was going through the House. In fact, I'll tell you, the politician who did question the notification was a Brexiteer, Bill Cash. And he wrote an alternative bill as the bill was drafted before it went through at the beginning of 2017. So and in fact he's been questioning a lot of the law. If you look in the recent debates, he's up to speed with the anomalies that lie between the Withdrawal Act, the Withdrawal Agreement, and forthcoming legislation.
Nice to hear a Remainer backing up the intellectual prowess of a Brexiter. In the language of civil unrest, a term which I've seen used by, for example, Tony Parsons in The Sun, when talking about reversing Brexit, but also even about the language of a second referendum. I've seen, for example, they don't even mention second referendum on the BBC at all. They just won't even mention it, or they'll refer to it as being very dangerous. So, which is worse, the second referendum or the unrest that they intimate will happen if there is no deal?
No deal won't happen. Parliament's united and has a majority to block no deal. It won't happen. So that's a misnomer. I mean, there's just no point going there with that. The violence that will be faced if Brexit happens will go on for years. I mean, you know, we remember the Thatcher years, or, you know, well, certainly people my age will do, and the violence that went on with what she tried to do. And we're looking at decades of unrest because of the uncertainty and the impact that will have on people's lives and job losses. Already, if you look at Swindon Borough Council, what's gone on this week, they've announced the loss of hundreds of jobs. So, you know, and that contraction affects everybody. It affects the whole town of Swindon, which then has an impact which goes out, and if every authority starts losing jobs, then that will start to impact on local economies. And this is ultimately what Brexit is about. It's about reducing the size of the state, and that's why the Conservatives are wanting that as a sort of restructure to reduce taxes and change the system.
In today's Sun, as it says here, it says "Wise up PM," and it's telling Theresa May to renegotiate with Brussels to avoid a hard deal. And then next to it, you've got an article by Brendan O'Neill of Spiked magazine, which is trying to say that the riots in France, the Yellow Jacket riots, are a backlash against environmentalism. So he's trying to repurpose everything as being a pro-Trump thing, even though, you know, it's actually anti-deregulation. What have you got to say about that sort of thing, which obviously ranges from press ownership and the decisions in the media of what to broadcast, and the actual wider picture of Europe and unrest at prices, as opposed to specifically green taxes?
Yeah, well, populism is being used as a weapon to motivate people's grievances, and the media are assisting with this, and I think actually this is a really good argument for not going into Theresa May's deal, which is the vassal state rule taker, is that if problems do really go throughout the EU and the populists do take over the running of the EU, if we're in Theresa May's deal, we will never get escape. We'll be stuck in it. So that, you know, that's if things do really start to splinter in Europe, if we're a member of the European Union, we'll always be able to escape at a time should that need to happen. However, I do believe that these problems are just being blown up, the same as the refugee crisis in Calais, and you know, I think it's just being used as a weapon here to make you see that things are bad in France. Whereas France is known for, the French people are known for protesting. I don't think there's any great doing.
Sure, so the plan is almost, you know, for the wider picture, to stay in and to virtually increase the clout that we have to try and be a force for good within the EU.
Well, that's what I hope for, and I think that's what most strong Remainers hope for. Obviously that's out of our hands, but it would be nice if we could get this Brexit legally analysed and start again with a fresh slate, a new vote, and you know, a real analysis through a public inquiry of why this has wasted nearly 3 years of Britain's lives, you know, which is horrendous. The waste of money is horrendous. I'm hoping that this case will get permission, and then at last there will be the courts will be able to analyse whether this is constitutional or not, and that is absolutely essential for holding up the rule of law, which we all rely on.